At 55 years old, gospel legend Kirk Franklin, recognized worldwide for his inspiring music and unwavering faith, collapsed right in the middle of a church service. Shock swept through the congregation as his daughter, Carrington Franklin, quickly spoke out, begging fans everywhere to lift him up in prayer. But what really went on inside those church walls? And why is his family now asking for so much privacy? Stick with me, because what we're about to uncover will leave you speechless. It's far more serious than most people first thought. Kirk Franklin isn't just another figure in gospel music. To many, he's the heartbeat of an entire generation, from his record-breaking hits to his powerful role as a voice of leadership in the Christian community. His impact has always stretched well beyond the church pews. So when the news broke that he had suddenly fainted during service at only 55 years old, shockwaves traveled instantly. Fans across the globe started asking what really happened to Kirk Franklin. Could his health be much worse than anyone imagined? And why did his daughter, Carrington Franklin, feel she had no choice but to break her silence and ask the public for prayers? In today's video, we'll be digging deep into what unfolded in that sanctuary, what his family has revealed so far, and the hidden struggles Kirk may have been carrying behind the spotlight. We'll revisit his past health scares, the relentless weight of gospel fame, and the raw emotional reactions from both fans and fellow gospel artists. But most importantly, we're going to look at what this moment means for his future, his ministry, and his lasting legacy. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this story goes far beyond a simple fainting incident, and the most shocking part: the details his family hasn't publicly shared yet could change the way you view Kirk Franklin forever. It all began on what should have been a typical Sunday service, the kind of day Kirk Franklin has lived through hundreds of times before. The church was alive with joy, music, and the unique energy only gospel worship creates. The choir sang, the congregation clapped, and Kirk, as always, was right in his element. He has never been the type to sit quietly during a service, whether at the piano, behind the pulpit, or urging the crowd to praise louder. Kirk Franklin lives and breathes worship. But on this day, something felt off. Eyewitnesses recall that Kirk seemed unusually drained. His trademark smile was still present, his voice still carried strength, but there was a visible heaviness to him, as though his body was fighting while his spirit pressed on. And then, in one terrifying moment no one saw coming, Kirk collapsed. The sanctuary filled with gasps. The music came to a halt. Some described the scene as if time itself stood still. This wasn't a dramatic stage act or some planned gesture, it was frighteningly real. Members of the congregation rushed to his side as church leaders immediately called for medical help. The room erupted in prayer. Some people wept uncontrollably, while others froze, torn between lifting their phones to record or bowing their heads in desperate faith. Within minutes, Kirk was surrounded by family and church leaders. His daughter Carrington appeared shaken to the core. For years, she stood beside her father, defending him in times of controversy and celebrating with him in moments of triumph. But this moment felt different. Carrington immediately sensed this wasn't something that could simply be hidden or brushed off. Not long after, she went to social media and asked for one thing: prayers. She didn't release a detailed medical report, nor did she share exactly what happened in the aftermath of the collapse. Instead, the words she chose reflected both her fear and her faith. For a family that has spent decades under public scrutiny, her decision to speak out so quickly said a great deal. It wasn't about attention, it was about urgency. And here's where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. Because this wasn't the first time Kirk Franklin had shown hints that his health might be under pressure. When you look at his recent years, a concerning pattern begins to appear. To really understand the weight of Kirk Franklin's sudden collapse, we can't just focus on that single Sunday morning. It wasn't an isolated incident. For years, there have been subtle indicators, signs that Kirk's mind and body might have been carrying far more than his fans realized. Kirk Franklin may be 55, and while his energy on stage makes him seem timeless, age eventually catches up with everyone. Touring, recording, ministering, mentoring younger artists, while also being a husband and father, all of these roles create a non-stop lifestyle that can wear down even the strongest person alive. Add on top of that the crushing weight of being a public figure in the gospel world, where the expectations of perfection never seem to end, and suddenly the picture becomes clearer. Over the years, Kirk himself has admitted to struggles that go deeper than simple fatigue. He's spoken openly about battles with depression, insecurities, and the lasting wounds from a painful childhood. To many, he's only seen as the polished performer in front of massive crowds. But very few stop to consider the toll those inner struggles take on the body. Stress, after all, is one of the most dangerous and silent triggers for health issues: fainting spells, heart complications, even complete burnout. Fans will also remember that not long ago, Kirk appeared in interviews looking noticeably thinner, sparking speculation that he might be pushing himself too hard. Even though no official medical report suggested he was battling a long-term illness, the whispers only grew louder, especially after he admitted to making extreme lifestyle changes in between juggling family challenges, major music projects, and the never-ending demands of being gospel music's most recognizable figure. It seems more and more likely that Kirk may have been stretching himself far past his physical limits, and this is where the concern deepens. Those closest to him, including fellow gospel artists, often comment on his tireless work ethic. They describe him as a man who never slows down, who refuses to pause, and who constantly pushes himself to top every single performance, album, and public appearance. Admirable? Absolutely. But also risky. Doctors often caution that continuous overwork combined with lack of real rest can easily lead to fainting, cardiac strain, or worse. Looking back now, this collapse inside the church almost feels like it had been building for years. The warning signs were all there: the weight loss, the visible fatigue, the unending responsibilities, and the emotional load he carried. No one, however, expected it to play out so dramatically in front of an entire congregation. Yet, this leaves us with another question. Why did Carrington, his daughter, feel compelled to publicly call for prayers so quickly? If this had only been a simple fainting spell, or perhaps just dehydration, wouldn't the family have calmed fans right away? Instead, Carrington's words carried a tone of urgency and gravity, suggesting that what happened may have been far more complex than the public realizes. And when we take a closer look at Carrington's decision to speak out, we begin to uncover a deeper layer to the story, one that ties not only to Kirk's health, but also to the pressures and private struggles within the Franklin household itself. When Kirk Franklin collapsed, what stood out most was the silence from official representatives. In moments like this, fans usually expect quick statements from managers, publicists, or even church leaders. But instead, it was Kirk's daughter, Carrington Franklin, who stepped forward first. She became the very first family member to break that silence, and the words she chose carried weight, shaping the way the public interpreted the entire situation. Carrington went online and asked for prayers. She didn't try to downplay the event, nor did she attempt to spin it into something lighthearted. She didn't post photos of her father smiling in recovery or offer empty reassurances that he was doing just fine. Instead, her message was raw, direct, and filled with emotion. Her father needed prayers. The moment was serious enough that she wanted the world itself to join her in lifting him up. On the surface, it may look like the usual plea of a worried daughter, but if you read between the lines, it reveals something deeper. Carrington's choice of words hinted at a moment filled with uncertainty, a moment when the family themselves may not have fully known what was happening or how severe Kirk's condition really was. That kind of uncertainty is terrifying, especially when it surrounds someone as central and beloved as Kirk Franklin. And we can't forget, Carrington's bond with her father has always been marked by quiet loyalty, even when the Franklin family went through public storms like the highly publicized fallout between Kirk and his estranged son. Carrington chose silence. The tension during that period was splashed across headlines, with leaked recordings, interviews, and accusations spreading online. Through it all, Carrington stayed away from the chaos, but her silence was a loyalty of its own. She refused to fuel the drama, choosing instead to stand by her father. That history makes her recent decision even more telling. For someone who usually shields the family's privacy, Carrington's choice to speak out so openly shows just how serious this moment was. She understood that fans would learn about it eventually, but by addressing it directly, she was able to control the story before rumors spiraled. And notice, she didn't frame it as gossip, nor as scandal, but as a direct call to prayer. Which brings us to the deeper question: why prayer? Why not a simple statement like, "My father is fine, he only fainted"? By asking specifically for prayers, Carrington cast the situation as something greater than just medical facts. She presented it as spiritual warfare, a battle for her father's health and well-being that required divine intervention. That choice of words speaks volumes about how the family themselves may have understood what took place. In the gospel community, prayer isn't just tradition, it's power. For generations, Black churches have leaned on prayer in moments of crisis, sickness, and uncertainty. By calling on the community to intercede for Kirk, Carrington tapped into that deep cultural foundation. She reminded everyone that despite his global fame, her father is still a man in need of grace, healing, and collective support. Their reactions might hold clues about what lies ahead for him, and whether this collapse will go down as a crisis or mark the beginning of a brand new chapter. The moment word spread that Kirk Franklin had collapsed in church, the response was swift and overwhelming. The gospel community, known for its tight bonds and shared spiritual family, rallied in ways we haven't seen in years. Social media feeds quickly overflowed with prayers, Bible verses, and emotional tributes. Hashtags like Pray for Kirk and Stand with Franklin began trending, a clear sign of just how deeply this moment shook both fans and fellow artists. Prominent gospel singers, respected pastors, and even celebrities outside of gospel circles joined in, some posting heartfelt prayers, asking God to restore Kirk and strengthen him. Others shared personal testimonies of the ways Kirk had touched their lives, not only through his music, but through his mentorship and presence within the industry. One major gospel artist even described him as the glue that holds modern gospel together, a man whose influence stretches far beyond what most people recognize. That sentiment echoed over and over again. Kirk Franklin isn't merely an artist. He's an institution. But as the support flooded in, so did speculation. Fans began raising difficult questions. Was his collapse simply the result of exhaustion? Could there be an undisclosed illness behind it? And why, many wondered, was the family keeping their statements so vague? Some pointed to Kirk's visible weight changes in recent years. Others highlighted his relentless schedule packed with performances, appearances, and responsibilities. Online, rumors spiraled. Everything from potential heart problems to stress-related burnout was suggested. And while none of these claims were ever confirmed, the uncertainty only fueled the curiosity. Making matters worse was Kirk's own silence. Normally, he's quick to connect with fans directly, whether through interviews, social media updates, or spontaneous live streams. But this time, nothing. No video, no reassuring smile. No direct words from Kirk himself. The silence grew louder. By the day, and in the world of celebrity culture, silence often stirs up more questions than answers. Still, one truth remained undeniable. The sheer volume of support proved just how profoundly Kirk Franklin is loved. Thousands of fans opened up about how his music carried them through their darkest seasons. Songs like Stomp, Imagine Me, and I Smile became more than just music. For many, they were lifelines, anchors for those wrestling with depression, pain, and struggles of their own. To countless people, Kirk Franklin wasn't simply an entertainer. He was a healer, a spiritual leader, a voice reminding them that faith could endure even the hardest storms. And perhaps that's why the reaction to his collapse wasn't treated like ordinary celebrity news. It was personal. Fans felt as though one of their own family members had been struck down. The prayers weren't just polite or symbolic, they were raw, desperate cries from people who truly believed they owed part of their survival to the ministry of Kirk Franklin's music. At the same time, some critics couldn't help but point out the irony. For decades, Kirk has been the one urging others to keep pushing, to keep smiling, to hold on to faith through trials. And now, in this vulnerable moment, he suddenly found himself on the receiving end of that same message he had poured into others. The man who told millions to smile through their pain was now in need of those very words being spoken back over his own life.